we knew that John was looking to step down. At least there's been speculation. There's been a lot of speculation at EA about who's going to be the next person in charge. And so it suggested that he was considering it. Now, let's remember that he was at the company as chief operating officer for a long time, left the company for a while in the early 2000s, worked on a couple of different businesses, not least of which is Elevation Partners as an investor with Roger McNamee,
right.
And was thought to be the guy that really understood digital media as the world starting to go into digital in a big way. Came back to EA at a time of much difficulty for EA. And I think what you see from the stock performance of the entire time that he was there is that, it went from being the dominant company in the business to less than dominant. And you see the stock sold off, especially, in the year 2008, in the next year that he was there. But he really brought down the number of titles, brought down the revenues, but brought back maybe some of the potential for them to make more money. And the quality of the games was thought to improve. The way they set up little studios, like the studio that made Dead Space, which you're seeing right there right now, increased the focus on corporate culture, slowed down the defections that were happening at the company. I think a lot of people thought he was doing a good job, but Wall Street certainly was often disappointed. And when they looked at the results that were coming in the next quarter, more disappointments were on the way.
So we've talked to Riccitiello here on the show. We've talked to EA COO Peter Moore here several times. What do you think pushed him over the edge? Is it really just this quarter?
Well, SimCity, the SimCity problem was a real disaster. This was a game that EA really was a special game for EA. There wasn't anything else out there in the market. And then EA came out with this new version. Now, EA has been under pressure to be more digital, to be more mobile. So they were requiring every user of the new SimCity, whether they're playing with friends, playing online, or just playing by themselves, to log into the servers and play in constant contact with the servers. The servers couldn't handle it. The game was crashing. People were asking for refunds. Here you have one of the seminal franchises, Electronic Arts, and users couldn't even use the new game. It was a great success in selling it, and they couldn't use the game, and that may have been the thing that really pushed them over the edge. It may have, we don't know if that's what hurt the revenues. The timing isn't quite clear that would have been part of the last quarter, but clearly this is a disappointment to the company, an embarrassment.
So EA has trailed Activision. What about Zynga?
Well, Zynga got all the mind share, if you will, a year and a half ago. But what we saw is as EA really turned its attention to digital and turned its attention to mobile, the percentage of revenues coming from digital, and that does include console games that are played in a digital component as Sims, as I described, the percentage of revenues coming from digital increased substantially over the last really 6 quarters. You saw a really big move from this company, and that helped the company really accelerate above Zynga and have actually greater digital revenues. There are also some really important acquisitions like OMG Pop, the makers of, what's the game you love?
Bejeweled.
That's one you love?
Hey, no. It's
Plants and Zombies that you love. One of the games, anyway.
They're both pretty cool.
There's Bejeweled, Plants and Zombies, huge success online. That acquisition helped propel EA to be the leader in online games ahead of Zynga. Zynga has mightily struggled. EA maybe has struggled less. And that's probably good news for them.
You mentioned PopCap, and we have interviewed the founders of PopCap, which was a huge coup for EA to buy PopCap because it really helped catapult them further into the social gaming space where Zynga was such a huge competitor. I'm curious about Peter Moore because we've seen him get promoted over the last couple of years.
Sure. Well,
is he
first of all, about PopCap, it seemed like a great idea at the time. They always do. But it seemed like a great idea when Zynga seemed like a great idea, and it might be something they were pursuing. So, they didn't make the mistake of acquiring Draw Something, which Zynga did right as the thing game peaked. But what we do know is that their success in digital, they seem to acquire the right properties that have the right characteristics for growth. Now, Peter Moore is a guy we've had on our show a lot, but there have been a number of names, and there's digital as a percentage of revenue. You can see how that's increased over time from 21 to 34%. And that's something that Peter Moore has been very much involved in, but he's really been focused on sports, a recent promotion. Frankly, if John Riccitiello is saying, as he did very candidly in a memo to employees, I didn't do a good enough job, I don't deserve to work here anymore, it'd be hard for him to pick a successor. So the board is going to have to make that decision. If they pick someone internally, people might rightly say, look, if you're admitting you screwed up in the past, why are you picking the same screw-ups? We like Peter a lot personally, and he seems to do a great job. But I think investors might reasonably want to know if they're going to consider someone from the outside.
And they have said they're going to be looking at both internal and external candidates.
To be fair, that's the right thing to do.